I came across this concept of accessory dwelling units. ADUs for short are very prevalent in the West Coast, and I think the timing is right here in the East Coast. Two bathroom homes that we are building. The prices are around, give or take, $200,000. It is a home. It's built like a home.
Welcome back to the Advisor AI Solutions podcast, where we spotlight innovators and leaders shaping the future of construction, sustainability, and technology. We're joined today by Breno Neri, the co founder and president of Contemporary Tiny Homes, a design build firm tackling the housing affordability crisis in Connecticut and beyond. Breno's unique journey from building a broadband company in Brazil to earning a PhD in economics at NYU to now pioneering tiny home solutions in New England makes him a fascinating voice in the future of housing. Breno, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jordan, for having me here. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, Breno. I'm also really excited to have you here and to dive into this. You've got such a diverse background. I think our listeners would love to hear how that kind of connects to tiny homes. But Breno, why don't we start with your journey? You've gone from tech entrepreneur to becoming an economist to builder. What inspired you to create temporary tiny homes?
Yeah, thank you for asking, Jordan. As you mentioned, I was a startup entrepreneur before, over 20 years ago, and I was quite successful in putting together that company. And then after my PhD in economics, I spent about 20 years working for large corporations, always starting new products and new services from scratch. So hiring the right people, creating the right processes that they have to prioritize work and to coordinate work across teams, etc. And a couple of years ago, I felt the personal urge to go back to my roots of a smaller startup company in which I have a bit more leeway on how the company operates. And I did some research in various areas. As you mentioned, I have a diverse background. I worked before in finance, in economics, in consulting, in healthcare. So I did very broad research in different areas from healthcare to construction, and I came across this concept of accessory dwelling units, which is related to tiny homes, but there are some differences. We can talk about that later. ADUs for short are very prevalent in the West Coast. In California, they have been issuing about 30 to 40,000 permits of ADUs per year, which is quite amazing. And I think the timing is right here in the East Coast. It's still very nascent. If it were 3 years ago, the local regulatory framework would not have been in place. But right now, I think we are well positioned to help a bunch of people.
I love that. I spent a couple of years in California, and it seemed like every block or so, every few houses, you'd see a tiny home or ADU in the backyard. So I absolutely love that, and to bring it up, to mention that it's coming up in the East Coast, that's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah,
Breno, sorry.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, can you share the aha moment when you realized that ADUs could be a real solution for housing challenges in the Northeast?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 21, there was this state law, the Public Act 2129, PA 2129, um, asking the towns to look into ADUs as a potential solution or part of the solution for the housing crisis, housing affordability. As you know, in Connecticut or New England as a whole, and we are here very close to New York City, by the way. On a weekend without traffic, we are 50 minutes away driving from Manhattan. So space is at a premium, and folks, typically elderly citizens, they are struggling to find a space. Property tax and the cost of living has increased over time, and they may not need a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot home anymore, and they are empty nesters ready to migrate to a smaller footprint, but it is expensive. So I truly feel that the demand is there, the need is there, and given the change in the regulatory framework, I think the combination is all there for us to be successful.
Right. That's interesting. So it wasn't just about the business opportunity or potential. It was also seeing how families and communities could benefit directly.
Absolutely, yeah. There is a use case, Jordan, if you allow me, that it's actually very exciting. So imagine empty nester, they don't need a large home anymore, it is expensive. They can build a very comfortable ADU in the backyard, move into it, and rent out the main home. And that's called retirement right there. In Southern Connecticut, they can derive very good rental prices for their main home and more than pays for the financing of the ADU, and they can keep the difference. They can pocket the difference, and that can really allow them to have a more comfortable retirement age.
Right. And yeah, I was just on your website and I was seeing that you guys have some designs for 2 bedroom tiny houses, for a very reasonable price that look absolutely gorgeous. And if I was looking to retire, that could definitely be something that could work for myself at least.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan. Yeah, they have, all the amenities and central heating and cooling, and they are well built. They are built to last. They'll be there for generations to come, and they add to the um, generational wealth of the family. I think it's a good investment.
Absolutely, I love that. Okay, Breno, Connecticut recently passed some legislation to make ADUs more accessible. How big of an impact do you think these small homes can actually have on the housing affordability crisis?
It's massive, Jordan. So in most of the towns currently, and there are, by the way, 169 municipalities in Connecticut, most of the towns currently allow ADUs in a way or another. Of course, there are restrictions that vary from town to town. In some of them, you are able to rent the ADU out, so that can be actually a form of income generation, passive income generation. Um, but most towns allow it in a way or another. So it's not that all properties are technically feasible to receive an ADU, even if the town allows, and we can talk more about that. But there is a potential for a meaningful percentage of the housing units in Connecticut to actually become two dwellings. And that's quite impactful. So you can have your main home and a separate home that has its own kitchen, its own separate entrance, and a second family can live in there. Some towns require that family to be related, but actually, most of the towns are very lenient on the kind of living arrangements. Um, and yeah, I truly think it can benefit the state in the sense that it's going to provide a meaningful number of housing units for the population.
Okay, that's great. Now, you also mentioned that there is a difference, of course, from town to town or county to county, but you also mentioned that there's a difference between a tiny home and an ADU. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, correct. So there are essentially a few types of ADUs. They can be a detached, standalone house on the property, and that looks a bit more like a tiny home, although it can have some difference as well, and we'll talk about that very shortly. But some towns, Jordan, require the ADU to be connected to that of the main home, almost like an addition. It's not an addition, it has its own kitchen, its own entrance, but they have to be attached to the main dwelling. And that doesn't quite fit the picture of a tiny home as we see. Um, there are also basement conversions. You can convert the basement to an ADU and again have its own means of egress. A garage conversion, top of the garage. So these formats of ADUs look a bit less the traditional tiny home. Also, when we say tiny home, they can be quite small. As you know, some of them can be on wheels, very portable. The ADUs, as the local regulatory framework mandates, they are a little larger. They have a regular concrete foundation, they are not mobile, and they have permanent connection to the utilities, water, sewer, and electricity. So they tend to be almost like a mix between a tiny home, which can be very small and mobile, and a regular dwelling.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. With that being said, so I know your homes are also known for being energy efficient and also built to last and resilient. What design choices or technologies set contemporary tiny homes apart from other builders?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking, Jordan. So we typically use thicker walls, so to speak, so we can fit a higher rated insulation material in there. So we are typically using currently at least R30 on the walls, R10 or R15 on the flooring system, and R60 on the ceiling. And at that point, the house is essentially airtight or almost airtight. Of course, there are vents for the kitchen and the bathroom, but they are highly efficient. Um, we also tend to use heat pumps. Most of the towns do not allow ADUs to have fuel, so you cannot have heating oil or natural gas in many towns. So we tend to use heat pumps, which are particularly efficient. So they are all electric, but quite efficient.
I love that you
And
guys
also
have
for
implemented the installations of heat pumps rather, and that's very
right.
smart. And especially given the climate in the Northeast, on the coast, I imagine clients really appreciate the focus on efficiency.
Absolutely. And also, if you allow me, Jordan, to heat the water as well, we tend to use tankless water heaters. Um, they are electric. The fact that they don't have, because these units are very small, they typically have one bathroom and one kitchen. Um, so the fact they are quite small, a tankless water heater may be enough for a single person or an elderly couple. And they are also more efficient than the regular 40, 50 gallon tank water heater because, in a tanked water heater, there are losses, thermal losses through the tank wall all day long, even if you're not using it. You can be on vacation for a week, but the system's keeping there 50 gallons of hot water that's like losing heat all day long. So the tankless systems that are typically not enough in terms of capacity for a larger home, but they are for an ADU, they are very efficient.
That I love that design. That sounds ideal for the purpose. Um, Breno, you guys normally, or sorry, you guys often talk about multi-generational living. Parents or grandparents, kids, all being able to stay close and maintain it, independence. Why is that such an important piece of your mission?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's because I come originally from Brazil. But something that I find very interesting is that um, as as some citizens are getting older in the US, they tend to live into a nursing home or an assisted living facility. And of course, there are some of those facilities who are quite comfortable and they can live in there quite happily. They tend to be expensive, and not all of those facilities are as good as they could be. So, by having the elderly citizen living into an ADU in the backyard, they can have their independence, their individuality. If they have the health and the wealth, they can lock the door and travel. It's very safe. It's in the backyard of one of the kids. But they can also be checked in as often as needed. They can help with childcare. They can be invited for dinner now and then. As a company, as part of our mission or strategic target is to help the elderly citizens to have a very comfortable, retirement age and spend more time with their kids and grandkids. There is actually research, very clear research showing that there is, Jordan, a lower decline, uh, a lower speed of cognitive decline when elderly folks are spending more time with their grandkids.
Yeah, I love that. And that, that really resonates. It's more than just construction and design, but it's more about family well-being in a sense.
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
So right
And
now you guys are rebuilding. You guys are building in Connecticut, but you've talked about expanding into other states like Massachusetts and Rhode Island. What's the vision for scaling contemporary tiny homes across the Northeast?
yeah, absolutely, Jordan. Um, we are building internal processes and hiring the right team that allow us to function at scale. And we plan to be operating in at least southern Massachusetts, not exactly on the Boston area, but southern Massachusetts in the spring of 2026. And by 2027, we'd love to be operating Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. So these are the three states that we plan to tackle within the next couple of years. Right now, we are already working on the entirety of the state of Connecticut. So we have salespeople and construction project managers in the eastern side of the state, so Tolan County, New London County, in the middle side as well, New Haven County, Hartford County, as well as on the western side, mostly Fairfield County. Um, and we have some central infrastructure on architectural design, on marketing, payroll, accounts payable and receivables that are centralized and are built in a way that they can operate at scale. It's easy to increase the size of those departments to support sales force and construction project managers that may be across state lines.
Oh wow, that's super exciting. Your guys' growth and scale at that level. But that must come with some challenges. Do you mind sharing, what a couple of the biggest bottlenecks might be?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that we are investing in growth so quickly, such a short time frame, is of course writing the right people, and having the right team is paramount. Not only for the customer experience, but also for the quality of the product and the way that we communicate internally and we enjoy working as a team internally. And of course, hiring the right people takes time and it's costly. Um, Also, putting together the processes so quickly as we go. We are out there building a dozen homes right now, and we have a good number of processes in place, and I think we are very well organized. But putting that together and refine those processes as we are operating at a good scale, of course, generates some challenges. But I think that's where my experience in putting together new products, new services, new teams comes in handy.
That's so true. When you say that having the right people, the right processes, and the right tools in place, it's essential, especially at that size.
Mhm.
Okay, so Breno, what's one of the biggest myths about tiny homes or ADUs that you find yourself consistently debunking?
Yeah, thank you, Jordan. I think a major one is on cost. There is a spectrum of prices for tiny homes and ADUs, from um, a very portable small unit that can't be it's not livable during the winter time when it's freezing temperatures, sub-zero temperatures outside, but they can be enjoyed during the spring, the fall, etc., in the summer, all the way to some of these two-bedroom, two-bathroom homes that we are building, which are essentially a regular house, perhaps a bit smaller. So the prices may some potential customers may have a sticker price. As you can see in the website, the prices are around, give or take, $200,000. It is a home. It's built like a home. It's a 6-month construction process between designing the home. Most of them are custom, and we have a full-time architect in the team. Designing the home, obtaining the building permits, and actually building the home. It's a 6 to 8 month construction process. It's like building a house. It has all steps of building a regular house. It's the same kind of foundation, the same kind of framing, the same kind of roofing, siding, utilities. It's just a bit smaller. So yeah, I think there is sometimes a misconception that ADUs can be very cheap, and it's not quite the case. It's a construction project.
Yeah, I can only imagine. People must often underestimate how livable these homes can actually be. Okay.
Yeah, no,
Um,
you're right. They can feel like a Miami style condo or like a New York City apartment. They're quite livable. They are quite large. I lived when I was a student 20 years ago at NYU. My apartment was smaller in New York City. It was smaller than many of the ADUs that we built. They are quite generous in terms of size.
that's amazing. Breno, as far as say growing, which you guys are already in the process of, if you could wave a magic wand and change one regulation, technology, or perhaps a mindset in the industry, what would that one thing be?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not always that the awareness for the product comes after the regulatory change. Typically, there is a demand in place, and then the regulatory change happens as a result of the demand. I think for ADUs is a bit of an inverted process. Of course, awareness is increasing rather quickly, and many customers know exactly what ADUs are, and they are very knowledgeable about the process. But of course, it is a process, and it's going to take a few years for ADUs to be more well known. But I think that we can help in that process. I think we have very strong educational and marketing campaigns that can inform the population on the different use cases that ADU can be helpful.
Now, Breno, as far as the future, what's next for the ADU or tiny home industry? Are there any innovations or projects on the horizon that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jordan. I think that there will be, of course, increased competition over time, and that's helpful for the market as a whole. It increases awareness. It increases the standardization of some of the zoning laws that are currently quite segmented on a town-by-town basis. It's interesting that some of the town inspectors, this is the regulation around ADUs are so new that actually some town inspectors are not exactly up to date on the latest changes about ADU regulation. So I think the future is very bright in the sense that the market is going to be more mature from a regulatory standpoint, from a customer awareness standpoint, from a competitivity standpoint. I think that in terms also of construction techniques, because these homes are smaller, it's going to be easier to make them in a more modularized way that makes building them a bit cheaper and faster. And we're already seeing some of these advancements in the West Coast as well.
That's super exciting. I can't wait to see what else comes down the pipe here in the near future. Um, now, Breno, here's just a fun question we like to ask all of our guests. If you weren't building tiny homes, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
Yeah, I could be sailing around the world. My plan is to spend about 10 years on the leadership of this company, and then pass the ball perhaps to a team of leaders who can take it from there. And I plan to live on a boat and circumnavigate. We do spend a meaningful amount of time on a older boat we have currently, sometimes a week long or a bit more. And yeah, 10 years from now, you'll probably find me in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Pacific, crossing the oceans.
Oh, that's terrific. I can't wait to hear more about your adventure and your journey. Okay. Now, Breno, this is the part where we allow our guests to, let our listeners in on anything they'd like to share, especially who might be considering ADU for their own properties, perhaps a message, and as well any socials or any programs you'd like to drop here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that many of the listeners of the podcast are in the construction industry in a way or another. So perhaps one message is to try things a little differently. Of course, that for safety and due to regulatory pressure, construction industry is used to certain construction methods or construction processes, but pushing the envelope a little bit, trying to uh, work a little bit out of the comfort zone. I think it can benefit any construction company. We are quite innovative here, maybe because I'm coming from other industries that are very heavy on the R&D, such as healthcare, for instance. But yeah, maybe that's a message I can leave to the community that can be helpful.
That's wonderful, and that's a message I'm sure listeners will take with them, for ways to come. Now, Breno, thank you for sharing your journey insights. What you and your team at Contemporary Tiny Homes are building isn't just housing; it's an opportunity, flexibility, and a way to bring families and communities closer together. To our listeners, if you're curious about ADUs and how they could fit into your life, whether as a guest suite, income generator, or a way to help families live close, check out Temporary Tiny Homes at ctiny.homes. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Advisory AI Solutions podcast on YouTube. Until next time, keep building the future. And Breno, thank you so much. I can't wait to follow your guys' journey into the future.
Thank you, Jordan. I had fun and congrats on the podcast. I think it's very helpful for the community.
Awesome. Appreciate you.